Welcome back to another installment of today's episode. Today we're looking at Solar Opposites Season 4, the premiere. It's called the Ping Pong Table. However, the characters in the show call it the Ping Pong Table. Korvo, Terry, Yumyulak, Jesse, and the Pupa, and I guess Little Buddy, are the whole family. And then Aisha is the AI robot.
Yeah, voiced by Tiffany Haddish.
And they're an alien group, if you haven't seen the intro, that have crash-landed on Earth, and now they're trying to get off of Earth so that they could terraform some other planet.
Did you think that when Korvo and the whole group went into space, they actually were going off into space?
What do you mean?
Like, it always starts every single season with them always about to leave
You jumped
Earth.
into the episode, so I wanted to ask you if you wanted to talk about the production drama first, the episode plot, or the comparisons.
Let's just jump into the plot.
Okay, so the plot starts with, we get that scene that was shown in the preview for the show, which is explaining why Korvo has a different voice.
I thought that was just going to be a scene that was kind of out on the internet for forever, and they were just going to start with Dan Steven already voicing Korvo.
They snipped a little bit of it. They snipped the part where he was like, and if you look back at the flashbacks, you'll also hear his voice is different or something like that.
No, that they showed that. When
that was in
the intro. That's one of the things that he goes off on one of his rants about.
I must have missed that. Okay, so I thought that they had like snipped it off. Okay, and then you're talking about the dream sequence right afterwards where the alien family is about to leave Earth, and then it's all in Korvo's mind because Korvo's been the most insistent. He's the one who's always been trying to fix the ship. He's the type A personality who's trying to get out of there.
Well, my question was just how are they going to make it different this time around? And when I saw them go into space, I was like, oh, this is going to be the whole episode. And then, yeah, like you said, it ended up being a dream sequence and Korvo wakes up.
When you say different this time around, do you mean that every season up until now?
Yeah, because in like season 2, if you remember when they were trying to leave, there was like too much weight. In season 3, there was another reason. In season 4 here, they actually weren't even on the ship this time, or it seems like trying to leave.
Certainly. No, they tried to leave, but I thought you meant that there was a theme to the seasons. Like, what is this theme going to be this year? And as far as for season 4, it seems like they're dealing with the ramifications of what the Pupa did at the season finale of season 3, which I never saw, but was able to gauge just based off what they were talking about. They said that he sort of turned into a teenager and started flipping out and turning into big gas and stuff. And
reminds me a little
them.
bit. I mean, Pupa is a little bit like Groot, but I have...
you think that Pupa is like Groot. I think that he's like Maggie Simpson.
I had Maggie Simpson.
Perry the Platypus, and Nibbler combined.
Wow, you had everyone except for Hitmonkey. I have a little bit of Hitmonkey in there as well, but that's who I kind of had.
I think Hitmonkey is angrier than Pupa ever gets. Pupa just seems apathetic sometimes, but he doesn't have the same edge that I think Hitmonkey had.
Maybe he's more like Mooncake from Dead Space or for Final Space. Sorry.
No, I wouldn't even compare him to that because he's not as innocent either. I think the Maggie Simpson, Perry the Platypus, Nibbler like combination is what this character is. You always have the really tiny thing that's actually interfering more into the plot than the main characters even realize.
I found it strange because the person voicing the Pupa, this is the only role that they've ever done for the show, and I think that they're related to the creator Mike McMahon because their name is Sagan McMahon.
Oh, okay. Well, they do speak in this season.
Yes, well, the Pupa kind of always does in, like, every single season. Always, like, a couple words.
Yeah, a couple words.
But then you also look like at Thomas Middleditch. Be Positive was canceled back in May 2022. It seems like this is the main thing that he's been doing. You also have Mary Mack as Jessie. She's not doing a lot, so
You'll recognize Jessie's voice from everything.
But I thought that when we were going to be looking at Yumyulak, the person who voices him, Sean Guillaume, I think that's how you say his name.
I don't think that's how you say his name.
He is in a ton of things. Like, so much. It actually surprised me.
All cartoons?
Well, not all cartoons. No, actually. He was one of the main roles in The Goldbergs. He was also one of the main roles in an animated series called Clarence, which was airing at the same time back in 2013.
Sure.
He even was a voice actor for 2 main roles in 2020, Solar Opposites and Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous. And in 2022, he's the main roles in 2 other shows, Slip and Jimmy and Grimsburg. And he's only 24 years old. Also, it might surprise you to learn that apparently the voices that they use in the show, that's actually how they speak. I always thought that they were putting on those voices, but if you go back to interviews or you listen to them, that's actually their voices.
You can recognize who they are. They do put a little bit of emphasis and exaggeration on the voices when you hear them in the show that you wouldn't normally hear in there, but you can recognize. Like, unlike with Justin Roiland, where when he normally speaks, I don't think you could necessarily pick out the Rick and Morty or even Korvo when he was doing that. Dan Stevens, I feel like he's extra British in this.
With Dan Stevens, it's a little different. He was such a big fan of the show that they decided to reach out to him, and then they were even thinking that he would do an American accent.
Yes.
And then when he read the lines, they just like the cast found it so funny that he was British and that he delivered it so well that they were just like, you know what, keep the British accent.
All right, let's put the production drama on the back burner for just a minute. Let's get into this episode. Apparently, because it went off the rails in season 3, now the opposites need to play Married with Children. They're going into sort of a workplace comedy, family comedy mode, where Korvo and Terry now work at a rake company, the most boring Davenport rake company that they can get. They have their colleagues Doug, Pim, Jam, Janice, Will, Deanna, Takeshi, Amar, and Tom.
The second that I saw Pim and Jam, sorry to cut you off, but the second I saw Pim and Jam, I was like, yeah, that's Jim and Pam. Like not
their
before,
names.
Even obviously their names, but
yeah,
even before then, when they were just in the room.
Yes, and that joke is going to be made even more directly in the second episode where they literally call him out for being a Krasinski. But yeah, so Yumyulak and Jesse, however, are going to school and they're acting like normal teens, but not really, because they get bullied at school because they do this thing as aliens where they connect their armpits together, right?
Yeah, I think it was a play on Avatar where they have those things at the very end of their hair and they're able to transfer information that way or pair with something that way.
Also, it makes sense. It's like roots of plants because technically these aliens are plants, but they also eat like
as we see in the backflash.
Yeah, but they also eat meat, so it's a little strange. So Yumyulak and Jesse are bullied, and as soon as that happens, they sort of break off from each other and they become friends with like different people to try to increase their popularity. It's happened before.
That plot, the one thing that I found that people did not like about the show, even critics, is that how repetitious it gets.
Oh, for sure. That's why it incorporates so many strange out-of-the-box plots that don't include the family. But this first episode, this premiere for season 4, was all about the family.
Yes, that was my pro. I was glad that we didn't get the Wall storyline. I found the Wall storyline in season 1 great. In season 2, I found it good. In season 3, I thought it was almost taking over the actual show a little more than usual. And I know that the Wall was a big part of the pitch when Justin Roiland originally pitched it. And they have plans for seasons upon seasons. Even in season 2,
or
they had the Wall
series.
Yeah, they had the Wall mapped up for season 4. Actually, there was like talk about them doing a Wall series, but then Justin Roiland denounced that. He was like, no, because I really, this was supposed to be a big part of Solar Opposites itself.
And then where would it leave Solar Opposites if they got rid of the Wall? Like, they would have a big gap in there. So Yumyulak and Jesse, they both make friends with different groups. Jesse ends up with the Mean Girls group.
Yeah.
And they start talking about how they want to get revenge on Yumyulak. And then Yumyulak ends up with the teachers in the TA lounge, right?
But
sorry, not the TA. Was it?
The teachers' lounge.
Yeah, the teachers' lounge. Yes.
But the teachers are almost like kind of those stoneheads that you see in every other teen movie or TV show.
In complete cartoon logic, it doesn't go through any method of explaining how Yumyulak is able to break in with the teachers' friend group. He just suddenly is there, and they're all like doing cool things together, like getting high and punching mailboxes, and very teenage behavior for these teachers. So yeah, they also want to get revenge on Jessie for some reason. That's why they go outside the house and they start doing donuts in front of her window in one of the cars, just like insulting her, as she at the same time is going to the AI computer and asking for a dick gun to shoot at her brother and then have a bunch of like penises outside. Like it's very strange. But then they end up at a school dance later on, right? Where both of them are planning to hurt the other version.
I was so certain we were going to be getting a Carrie reference.
We did get a Carrie reference.
No, we got somewhat Carrie reference. I was talking about the blood just being like poured. Almost
I feel like that would have been too much.
Well, Pretty Little Liars Original Sin did the same thing in episode 2 where they did the same exact Carrie prank.
As far as comedy is concerned, though, everybody could see that coming. So it was about doing something different. So instead, Yumyulak has like a Star Wars Wookiee setup. But probably the most wholesome moment of the show was when we got a backflash, and we actually learn how Yumyulak, and because they aren't children, they are replicants. And so how they are made, and I guess Terry was there, and they cut off his finger, and they planted it into the planter, and that's when they needed to be in the same root system in order to thrive.
They weren't growing as much as the others. It actually does tie in with season 1 or season 2, where they turned into plants or trees at the very end of like one of the season finales.
That is one of the best episodes, I think. And so it then moved back to Terry and Korvo at the office. All they're concerned about is getting a ping pong table, or ping table, as they say, to boost office morale. And so there's this montage of them convincing all the employees to sign off. And even the photo that they used to show Jam, that the Roy version is cheating on her, looks a little bit like Roy from The Office. And then there's a lady who has like her husband who died, and they found the killer of that. It got super dark for a second. And then Sarner, the boss, is like super resistant about giving them the ping pong table, but then we learn through him going downstairs in his basement and pulling out a pitcher that he's actually very into the sport because it was something his dad taught him.
It's always like those golf movies or like Cars even.
This is going overly into the plot, but then he puts one in the boiler room, which he also says is very dangerous, immediately dies. Korvo...
That was the funniest part to me. I laughed.
The funniest part to me
hard.
is when the trombone player died. Back at the party, or at the...
Oh, you're talking about when he takes stage?
Yeah, instead of Yumyulak's trap working on Jesse, he saves Jesse. This other guy gets up there. His name is Billy Hosenberg, and he's there to get the award for best trombone player, right? And then those two like pieces of wood just come in and smash his head.
Face,
so both our favorite moments are when someone dies.
Well, I know that the show is very, very keen on gory humor because Justin Roiland, when he was doing this show, and I know he's not part of the show anymore, but when he was writing it, said that he was putting a lot of that type of humor in there because this is really for teenagers, things that he would laugh at when he was a teen, and then did that same thing, even though the show is rated like TVMA.
Yeah, so the boss dies, Sarner dies, and they need to bring him back to life. So they have this like weird House of Cards moment where they're like discussing how to, you caught that, right? Where they they did it twice, where they literally showed the Frank Underwood thing where he's working out on that one thing, and Terry is smoking.
That's what it was.
Yeah,
yes. Okay, because I could tell they were referencing something, but yeah, obviously.
Yes, that's okay. House of Cards, and that's when they decide to bring back their boss to life. And once they do that, it's kind of like a monkey paw situation where he's not all there, and so he ends up at the board meeting jumping out the window and killing himself. And Terry gets promoted, and immediately when he gets promoted, the power goes to his head, and he says, "No more ping pong table," and also "I'm your boss" to Korvo, which Korvo really takes negatively. But that's where we actually end the episode, right? Like, there's nothing else in there.
No, I think that's all the 20 minutes.
Yeah.
What would you give the episode out of 10?
Well, I just wanted to say my 3 moments of note were that the replicants were born from a finger, the trombone player dying the way he does, and then the House of Cards reference, because that is one of the most notable cast shakeups in history of television, is Kevin Spacey, when they decided, we're going to continue doing the show, we're just going to flip him out, and his wife is going to take over as president. So I thought maybe... Also, do you think that Kevin Spacey, like, he is technically the guy who, like, kicked off the Me Too movement as, like, the first big scandal, right? You would think? Yeah.
When Sarner, he enters his garage, the boss, it was almost a complete Rick and Morty replica. Like, it looked almost exactly like the Rick and Morty garage. And apparently, Solar Opposites has had, for example, when Yumyulak and Jesse are in the school hallways, had, I guess, background or extras from Rick and Morty also show up in Solar Opposites.
Yeah.
So I find that connection there to be also one of my favorite parts, along with Sarner's death. And just, to me, Solar Opposites is never going to be a show. I find it a lot like Big Mouth or Hit Monkey or even like The Simpsons.
Yeah, let's transition to our comparisons.
In the middle of them. Well, I was just going to say, it's never a show that I think is going to be amazing, but also I can't think of an episode ever where I was thinking it was a complete waste of time or that was god-awful, which is why this episode for me, and I think Dan Stevens fits perfectly into the role as well, that's why I would give this episode probably like a 7 out of 10.
I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. It felt like one of the weaker episodes, but probably for one of your pros, because you said that you liked the fact that it was all about the family. And I felt like the show's at its strongest when it is going crazy and it's kind of flipping between a bunch of plots. But that's just because if you take in their type of humor that they do, meta jokes, puns, guest stars every episode,
all
references.
Yeah.
Like in this episode, we had Tiffany Haddish, who doesn't really count as a guest star because she's there all the time. Tony Hale.
She's actually, I think, a main character as of now. She was recurring in the second and third season.
But in the first episode here, she's listed as a guest star, I think.
Still? I didn't even catch that.
No, but she is a main character, so it's strange. And then Randall Park and Natalie Morales, and then in future episodes, it's at least one big name each episode that they get, kind of like Robot Chicken. But yeah, Koala Man, close enough, Rick and Morty, BoJack, Futurama, Smiling Friends, they all do sort of similar humor. And that's what makes it so that this is just one of a dozen shows.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily bad, so I give it a 6 out of 10.
Dude, did you put Clone High in the comparisons?
I did put Clone High in the comparisons because that also had sort of a cancellation thing, didn't it?
Yes, but that was more for the Gandhi situation.
That was a political correctness one.
I would say that the Clone High season 2 is more like fits the Solar Opposites thing than Clone High season 1, the original, just because of the humor that they were making for it.
It also reminds me of Into the Shadows, or What We Do in the Shadows, because the neighbors continually forget everything that happens across the street, and they're okay with the opposites just like destroying things all the time. And I guess that's the same with Rick and Morty.
Dominic Dearcast, he wrote the episode. He's also ran for college humor sketches, The Onion back in the day, Workaholics, Ash vs. the Evil Dead, and The Mick. All of those are out-of-the-box comedies, so it doesn't surprise me, and this isn't the only episode that he's written for, that he decided to do Solar Opposites as well. Mm-hmm. This has a huge fan base, and so I've actually been, I wanted to ask, on a scale of 1 to 5, where would you put yourself if you were given a test right now?
Probably a 3, because again, like, it's not as crass as Big Mouth or Archer. It's not as mind-bendy as Rick and Morty used to be, but it's definitely more absurd than like a traditional episode of Family Guy or The Simpsons.
Okay, so a 3.
Yes,
because we have 5 questions here. And I think they go up in terms of like intensity. I wanted to do one of those.
Like if I'm a true fan, I'll be able to get all 5. All right.
Okay. So, and they're all kind of different. So the first one is a semi-multiple choice answer, even though you're not actually going to be given multiple choice. Sterling K. Brown, who plays Hulk Hogan, a haunted war hero in The Wall. What season did he appear in or come around in?
Did he first show up?
Yes.
Okay, so was The Wall in the first season?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so probably season 2 or 3, so I'm going to say 2.
Okay, you got that correct.
Good.
So fill in the blank. The ship's AI voice is voiced by
Tiffany Haddish.
Yeah, I kind of gave that away. Forgot about that.
It sounds exactly like her, though, from the after party, so that wouldn't have been... I would have gotten that regardless.
The third one is a multiple choice. Terry, voiced by Thomas Melodish, wears a shirt in multiple episodes with what famous TV director's name on it?
Oh, no. And you're not going to give me a multiple choice?
I can. It's A, Vince Gilligan, B, Dick Wolf, or C, J.J. Abrams.
I think it's... Oh... I thought it was Dick Wolf when you said that, but it could be J.J. Abrams. I'll say Dick Wolf.
Okay, you got that correct.
Okay.
So that's the 3 that you were talking about. Now, true or false? Warped Kart Racers was a video game that came out in 2022 that was a racing game featuring the stars of American Dad, Family Guy, King of the Hill, and Solar Opposites, which also featured the voice actors returning as their roles.
They got the King of the Hill guy to return for a voice acting gig like this? It sounds real, but like I'll say false.
That is actually true.
All right.
It's weird though because obviously you have American Dad, Family Guy, King of the Hill. Those all make sense, but Solar Opposites.
King of the Hill did not make sense because I think even someone passed away recently.
Fox. They were all on Fox. Solar Opposites. I know it's on FXX, but it's really on Hulu,
which I think is all umbrellaed. Yeah. Together.
And the last one, this is a difficult question, but hint, Jesse's last name is a play on a famous 2006 Meryl Streep film. What is Jesse's last name?
I honestly thought all their last names were opposites.
No.
Because they even refer to it.
They do show. Here it's Jessie Wears Prada. That's her last name on the show.
Okay. I mean, you tell me. All right. Thank you. Let's talk about a little bit about the production drama because it sort of is the elephant in the room, and it's the thing that the show barely addressed, as you said in the first scene.
Right.
You've seen big recasts in Big Mouth. They recast Missy. Gandhi, like we said, from Clone High. You've even had The Simpsons Apu, but all of those are more politically correct differences that have like made for a change in cast. And Apu's they're still there, but he's just reserved to a background character. I think since like 2017 they haven't actually had him voiced.
Yes.
And then with Futurama, I told you that Bender almost didn't come back, but that was more contractual dispute because John DiMaggio was like trying to hold out for more money.
Yeah,
but then he decided, well, I'm not going to hurt my fans, so he went ahead and did it. But with this, it seems like this type of recast is only done with live action TV most of the time. When you talk about like felony domestic abuse charges, and Adult Swim was like, get out of here, but they were later dropped. But that hasn't changed the fact that they're recasting him here, but they're also recasting him in Rick and Morty, which I'm much more scared of.
They're actually going to be using what I thought they were going to be doing with Solar Opposites, where they were going to try and kind of voice match him with other actors. And I think that it was just really smart what Solar Opposites did with Dan Stevens, where they were just like, you know what, let's get someone famous who is funny and does a lot of TV and even voice work. Central Park, Love, Death, and Robots. He was even in Welcome to Chippendales and Gaslit, even though those were live action. But it adds to the comedy that they didn't even try to do the same voice. But I agree with you. Rick and Morty season 7 now coming out. It does scare me with are they going to be even able to make it sound similar at all?
Yeah. No, I don't think they will. I think it's going to be like when you see the sequels to the Aladdin cartoon where they tried to repeat Robin Williams' voice. And it just didn't sound exactly right. Like, you'll get some bit of it. The thing about Dan Stevens, though, is, like, is he the best man to replace him for that role? And probably not, from my opinion.
And that's, I think, where the humor comes into play.
Yeah, but one thing is clear, that it's going to take some time for it to kind of process, you know? Like, I do miss a little bit of Roiland, what he brought to that character.
Yeah.
And so I kept watching the show, even past that first episode, to see where my brain would be like, okay, this is normal.
How many episodes did you
watch? I got
to
episode 6, and it still wasn't normal. Like, it got more and more bearable as it went on, but it still wasn't there for me. And so I think the thing that you have to realize is that because it doesn't depend on that character as strongly as a Rick and Morty, like, depends on those two, it's helpful because what the show has decided to do is they've split the world off not only into the wall, but later on we've already seen the tree people, the land of tree people that they accidentally do. The other storyline about that guy who got stuck in a different planet, I think that there was like a couple episodes of that in season 3 where they shoot him off into space and then he ends up working for like the police force.
I remember.
And so I think what they're doing with that is really smart, because that's the crazier part of the show. Because if you look at the main characters, a lot of the times they're acting like It's Always Sunny characters, which can get really hard to watch, because yes, the replicants, Yumyulak and Jesse, have more humanity and empathy to them.
There's some heart
than Terry and Korvo do. But at the same time, it's like, it's nice to have the break and actually watch a human do stuff and act like more of a human, because it's always been an adventure for them.
You said that by episode 6 you're still not fully kind of
it was getting there, but it still wasn't 100% there.
So that, I think, kind of echoes the audience complaint, because on Rotten Tomatoes the audience score is a 43%, and it did just come out, and other episodes of this series have more reviews, but it has an 8 overall on IMDb. But it seems like this season has a lot lower IMDb scores, but it seems like critics overall really enjoyed this season. Like I said, repetition was really their only complaint. It has 4 tomatoes on Rotten Tomatoes. The overall show has 97%, and then Collider said that Solar Opposites is still one of the better original comedy series that Hulu has to offer, and this latest bunch of episodes may just be the series' most entertaining to date.
Well, I think the premiere is the weakest of the bunch. So I'm going to say...
Out of the 6 that you saw. Okay.
Out of the 6 that I saw. So I'm saying if you didn't like the premiere, that's not necessarily indicative of what you'll think of the rest of the season. So stick around for a little bit, see what you think of it. I think the closest it gets to pulling at your heart is like the beginning of episode 3, if anybody's interested in that. Other than that, I think we've addressed everything about the show. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.